The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The New York Giants 2025 preseason is in the books, and it was as close to perfect as perfect can be.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast.
The New York Giants are coming off of a 42-10 victory over the New England Patriots. Now, I've always said when it comes to the preseason games, don't get too high or too low over the score. Look in terms of the individual performances, how, the number of mistakes, maybe some of the things that the coaches are doing. Folks, there was a lot to like about the New York Giants this summer, and in particular, the offense. Okay. In 3 games, the Giants scored 107 points. And if we're going to put that into perspective, that is 17 more points than what they scored in the final 5 games last season. Okay. The Giants against the Patriots, who admittedly didn't play their starters, not that the Giants played their starters either. So you can kind of say it was kind of even because you had the backups against the backups, but the Giants were able to get 5 touchdowns from the 3 quarterbacks that played. Okay. Russell Wilson was the only quarterback that did not play for the Giants. None of the first team starters really played for the Giants on either side of the ball, which was kind of expected. And I'll go into that in the next segment a little bit. But, the biggest takeaway, I think, for the Giants this preseason is that these wins that they have had in which they have scored over 30 points in each game, this is going to build confidence for what is ultimately going to be the 53-man roster. I mean, after a while, when you keep losing games, whether it be preseason, regular season, or whatever, suddenly that loser mentality seeps into your mindset. And you just look at the Giants on the bench during these games when they're scoring. I have never seen, at least not in recent years, I have never seen such enthusiasm, such interest. You didn't see anybody sitting on the bench sulking or looking around or looking at the crowd or whatever. They were engaged. And when you are engaged, the psychological effect means that it's going to usually work out well for you. It's going to turn out to be a positive factor. And I just think that's a big takeaway from this preseason, because this team, even though the games don't count, the results of the games don't count, this team now is seeing and learning what it takes to win. And you have to remember, this was a renovated roster, an upgraded roster, starting with the quarterbacks right down to the defense. And just the mere fact that they're building this foundation, or they built this foundation, it should serve them well going into the regular season. Now, let's take a look at the offense. All right, I want to focus on that. So I went into Pro Football Focus to get what the Giants did on offense. Different types of plays. Like, for example, how many times were they under center? How many RPOs, deep passes, motion, and all that stuff. The biggest takeaway I'm going to give you, and I'll give you the other numbers in just a minute, but the biggest takeaway I'm going to give you, the screen game. All right. Now, when was the last time that you can remember the Giants running an effective screen game? You'd have to go back a few years. Well, folks, this summer, the screen game was on point. The Giants ran the screen 13 times, which was tied for most in the NFL with the Bucs. And according to PFF, the average yards they picked up per play when they ran a screen, 5 yards. Not bad. I mean, how many times have we seen in the past the Giants screen game get blown up? 5 yards per play, that's half of what you need for the next set of downs. Not bad, folks. Very encouraging. And, whether that's offensive line blocking, quarterback play, just the whole design and execution, whatever it is, that is a huge, huge upgrade for the Giants and something that I think is underrated when we talk about what the Giants accomplished this summer. Now, for those of you who are wondering, what else did they do as far as the offensive play calling goes? They were under center 68 times. That was important too, because remember, they had a rookie quarterback with Jackson Dart, a guy who really, I don't think was under center a whole lot at Ole Miss. They did play action 48 times, RPOs 29 times. And of the 29, 19 of those RPOs were runs. They attempted 18 deep passes, and they were in motion 57 times. Right now, to put it in perspective, there were 202 offensive plays run this preseason. So a nice mixture here. They diversified the offense. And, I don't know what's going to carry over into the regular season, because the preseason is also a time to kind of experiment and see, what works, what doesn't work, what looks good, what might we be able to run. So the bottom line with this offense is there was a lot to really like about what they did. Now, there was some stuff not to like. There were drop passes. For example, Jackson Dart, when he got his start, I think his numbers, he had 3 drop passes against him, right? 2 of which were by Jalen Hyatt, which was kind of disappointing. But overall, folks, I would say this offense vastly improved. And you could point to that either being a result of Mike Kafka calling the plays if you want. You could point to improved quarterback play, which has had an effect on the offensive line looking better. You could look at any factor that you want. But the bottom line is this is finally looking like a competent NFL offense after years and years of the offense just being such a dismal showing week after week with few exceptions. So a lot to be encouraged by from the preseason. And, the big question mark now is, can they carry it over to the regular season? I have no reason to think they won't. But we'll see, of course.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
Which Browns players have the most to prove in 2025?
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast.
It's the natural starting places to talk about this quarterback situation, especially while it still hasn't been carved down yet, and it's still the 4 guys. Because everyone kind of has a different opinion on, in some respects, of like what this room should look like, what the order should be.
Right.
So I guess I'll start there with you. If it was up to you, what should the quarterback depth chart look like in your perspective, based on what we've watched every day at training camp and seen so far in these preseason games?
Listen, it's a tough question because you understand the draft position with Gabriel and Shedeur, right? And I think that when you're the Browns and you're in the position you are right now with 2 number 1 draft picks going into next year, we've been talking about it all off season long. Figuring out what you have in that quarterback room from strictly Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel is of the utmost importance this season. Now, could you make a run with Joe Flacco? Is he going to win you some games? Sure. But for me, I need to know one of these rookies is the answer. And I know that's a popular opinion that's going around, that you need to find out what you have in these guys. So for me, you went into this, if it's a true quarterback competition, Spence, from what me and you have seen, the gap isn't so wide between Shedeur and Joe Flacco where I'd be not comfortable starting Shedeur. Now, I understand that you drafted him in the 5th round. You drafted Gabriel ahead of him. But Shedeur has just made NFL throws. He's from rookie minicamp on. I was there. You were there as well. And if you disagree with me, like Shedeur has looked better than Dylan Gabriel in all facets. And I think for me, personally, you put yourself in this position, I think you need to start one of these rookies, and I think it should be Shedeur if this is a true quarterback competition. But I don't think that's what it is in Cleveland right now.
Yeah, you touched on a lot there, and there's so much that sort of extends off the quarterback conversation just in general. I'm with you that Shedeur, I think, has been, of the 2 rookies, the most impressive. I think Dylan showed some nice promise on Saturday in the preseason game, like 3rd down throws. Where he was really good in those situations, made some high-level throws. Now, we all know what's going to stand out, of course, is the pick 6 and the fumble. Right. But I think he showed you like there should be reason to be excited about both these rookies based off what they've given you in the preseason games. But I think like from start to finish, Shedeur Sanders has been like the most consistent quarterback at practice. Joe's been the one guy that can like turn it up a notch, right? Like he did last week in the practices in Philly. Like he has that extra level he can go to where it's like, all right, I'm just going to ball out today. And I haven't seen any of the guys like do that, but Shedeur has just been sort of steady. And I tend, like I've said at points this offseason, like I agree with you that it to me, so much of this year is about figuring out what you have in those 2 guys and trying to learn if you need to draft a franchise quarterback next year or not. That I would have been okay starting one week 1. But I do think, and I understand where the team's coming from, and I know you obviously, like, this has been a conversation we've had as well. Yeah. Like, you're trying to win while rebuilding at the same time. And so that makes it difficult to put a rookie out there week 1, especially with the schedule that they play, and feel like you're giving your team the best chance to really win games when you know a rookie, no matter who it is generally kind of learning on the fly to a degree. So I understand where they're coming from with starting Joe Flacco. I don't have a huge problem with it, but I agree with you. Like, I think you have to get the best picture of these 2 rookie quarterbacks before the end of the season, or else you're doing yourself a disservice as you turn the page into 2026.
Yeah, and for me, it's like I look at, like, you got to manage the locker room, right? We talk about if you put the wrong guy out there, players in the locker room are going to see through it, and you might have a divided locker room and saying, like, why aren't we playing the best guy out there? This is the NFL. Certainly in 2023, we didn't see Joe Flacco going on the run that he did towards the end of that season. So I get you're trying to win football games. You got guys like Myles Garrett, who obviously went on his trade request tour through Radio Row at the Super Bowl. And you want to keep guys like that happy because you have a ton of talent up and down this roster. So I understand that logic. But for me, you painted yourself into a corner, and you really need to find out, okay, who's next? Because you know, at the most for me, I'm looking at Joe Flacco as a 1 year, like, okay, can he catch some lightning in a bottle? And then, okay, say that he does. Say that he catches lightning in a bottle. And you're sitting there at the end of the season, you're like, well, we don't even know if Joe Flacco is going to retire, if he's going to come back. Then we're like, you're kind of hamstringing yourself right now. You can argue like, okay, you know, we still don't know. We can take a couple of talented guys with those 2 first-round picks, and then, you know, maybe wait another year out to see if Arch Manning comes out. Now, he hasn't made a decision whether or not he's going to come out next year or the year after that, despite misreports from his grandfather, it seems. But I just think, like, for me, like the cards are on the table in terms of this team needs to find a franchise. We've been saying it since, I mean, you know, it's well documented. All the names are on that jersey, right? And yeah. I know it's something that Browns fans hate that we keep coming back to, but it is something that, like, listen, you need to find your guy. And when you find your guy, all the other pieces can fall into place. So I think that's more important here, is this 2-year plan that you're giving Andrew and Kevin to figure out what the future of this franchise is going to be. Because really, like, if you're Andrew and Kevin, like, your job's relying on it.
Yeah.
You get a bonus year here. I truly believe that they're getting a bonus year with figuring out some of the quarterback positions and trying to get out from under the Deshaun situation of it all. But you have to use it in the appropriate way. And for me, that is getting the most out of the rookies that you see. Because if you don't play him at all, what if Joe Flacco, wins, 8 games or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, when's the time to bring these guys on to see what we have in them without stirring up the locker room? So it's not like a perfect science where you're like, okay, we're going to play Flacco for 4 games and then we're going to sit him down. Because
right.
What if he goes 4-0 in those games, Spence? Like, what are you going to do then? I mean, obviously there's worse issues to have, right?
Yeah.
But
I think in that scenario, I think Browns fans are probably pretty happy. I think the team's probably pretty happy. Like if Flacco were to somehow lead this team back to the playoffs, the quarterback conundrum sort of becomes secondary to all that because you're busy just enjoying the ride, obviously. Right. The one guy we haven't talked about yet, and I think he has obviously sort of disappeared to the background a little bit here, is Kenny Pickett. And what's interesting about Pickett is we know the team has a deep infatuation with him. They traded for him.
He was the first quarterback to come in here between all of the 4 quarterbacks.
100%. And he was the guy that I think were maybe hoping was going to sort of seize the job. The hamstring injury has kind of derailed that for him. But I don't know, man. Like, I get the sense they're going to keep all 4 going into the season. I initially thought like maybe they would just do it initially when they cut the roster down and then try to trade one. But I don't know what Kenny Pickett's market is without a serious quarterback injury. And as he's dealing with an injury of his own, do you feel the same way? And is that the right move to keep 4? I'm going to guess you're going to say no, just based off the conversation we just had, where it's like you got to get to the rookies. But how do you feel about the idea of them keeping 4 quarterbacks?
Listen, I don't think they should keep 4 quarterbacks. Do I think that they will? Absolutely, from everything that we've heard. Well, we've known these Kevin Stefanski and this front office with Andrew Berry, their evaluation, they're going to stick with the evaluation of their guys. They typically tend not to go off their evaluation. I mean, we saw it with, lighter cases like Anthony Schwartz, where they drafted him, where it was like, why is this guy still on the field? He's not producing. What are we doing here? So I think like there's like certain situations where they trust their evaluation more than anything else. And they are going to kind of go against the grain when it comes to some of those quarterback discussions. And, like we said, they brought Kenny in here first. He's a Philly guy. We know how much Andrew loves his Philly guys. And Kevin's a guy that grew up in Philly. I think that they really, truly do like Kenny Pickett. And if there's a way to keep him on this roster, then they will. I just don't. For me, like, I get he hasn't gotten a fair shake. He injured. It hasn't gone well for Kenny Pickett so far, but I think in the practices that he's been healthy, and yes, he's trying to get in tune with this offense. He's trying to learn it all on the fly, but I don't know, Spence. He hasn't looked like the difference of like, oh, we need to keep this guy in the roster no matter what. And I get quarterbacks are currency in the NFL. That's all we ever hear. But if I'm a team, like you said, it would have to be, okay, my starter goes down. I still feel like, we have a good roster around this team. Maybe we could bring Kenny Pickett because he did win games in. So, that means something. Winning games in this NFL, or winning games in the NFL, is something that you can't take for granted. So I do think there's a certain amount of currency there. But, I have a hard time believing with this hamstring injury lingering that there is a lot of value for Kenny Pickett out there.
Derek Harmon, who was injured during this game, and it looked scary. We give you the insight on what we saw and what we've learned.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
Derek Harmon's injury, which was very scary in the moment, because Derek Harmon went down. Didn't look bad. No one really noticed it live. But the biggest thing was when it was reported from people who were there at the game that he went into the blue medical tent. And then shortly after that, you see on the broadcast, I was not in Carolina. Of course, I'm here in Pittsburgh. You see Derek Harmon on a cart looking very unhappy with a towel over his head, being carted off the field into the Steelers locker room. That was a scary sight. And it was noted that he was out pretty quickly after that by the Steelers, saying that he had a knee injury and he was out for the game. Of course, the worst is thought what's to be going on there. I was going to say, okay, let's wait and see what happens. Fortunately, it does seem like the Steelers dodged a bullet. Derek Harmon, I think it was during the third quarter, came out of the Steelers locker room, walked on his own power, said with a limp a little bit, but walked on his own power, got to the Steelers sideline, which was on the other side of the field from the Steelers locker room, sat down. The broadcast caught him joking and smiling and laughing with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt on the Steelers bench. That's a good sign that he's not down in the dumps. Also, I did not see a knee brace on him, which if he was wearing one, that might have been a sign for a more serious injury. And so the question now, though, is what does he have? Well, Mike Tomlin after the game did explain he has a knee sprain. He's quote a knee sprain of some description, which means we do not know what kind of a knee sprain this is. However, during the game, I went to my trusted doctor that we bring on the show, Dr. Karina Maharaja. We also have Dr. Harmondio, but we were able to get Dr. Karina and Dr. K. We've had her on in years past when there's been a big injury. We wanted to know what is the path to recovery, what's the severity. And so this was before we had Mike Tomlin's description of a knee sprain. So take the notice of that. We were still learning this at the time, but I did have an interview with her, which I'll share with you here on this show so that you can see her thoughts of just what she saw, what she thinks it is. And it sounds, from talking to her, if you glean from this conversation, pay attention to how when she's looking at it, she said there were two things she was concerned about. It was the twisting of the knee when he was falling, but also the contact of the knee and the thought that this could be a mild or moderate injury, not a severe injury. Here's my interview with Dr. Karina Maharaja on what's going on and what to expect with this injury, with this knee injury, and she'll give you some insight into what a mild or a moderate sprain type of an injury would be like. Here's that interview. And we are rejoined here on the Locked On Steelers podcast by our friend, Dr. Karina Maharaja. She's a doctor in physical therapy. We call her Dr. K on the show. She's come back to give us her thoughts. Dr. K, welcome back to the show. It's always bad news when we got to bring in the doctor, but we love to have your professional opinion on. Thanks for coming back on Locked On Steelers.
Of course, anytime. Good and sad to be back.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Derek Harmon's injury. Dr. K, please explain to our audience. You watched the play. I sent you the clip, the slow down a little bit. What were your thoughts as you saw Derek Harmon fall on the play where he was injured?
I didn't love it because there was a little bit of a twisty motion in the way he planted, but then there was also a little bit of a hit to the knee, right? So given these two different things I saw, we could be in a mild type of injury where he has a sprain or a contusion, and that would come more from hitting the ground, right? And we could also start to go into a moderate injury where his MCL could have had a light sprain. And then we could move also because of the twisting motion into something severe, where then we're looking at an ACL, MCL, and PCL involved. We call that an unhappy triad. It's really unclear to me how hard he hit the knee on the ground. So that could really differentiate the mild severity versus severe severity of what happened for him.
I totally understand that. One thing that was reported that Derek Harmon after the play was able to get up and walk away on his own power, and then they sat him down on the sideline and said, hey, let's take a look at this. How does that impact your view on what happened there? Does that matter at all?
So I think that's a really great thing. It gives me more of an idea that probably a bone is not involved if he was able to walk so well after, right? And actually get up and move. The tricky thing is with knee ligaments, if it is torn, people can still walk for a little bit after it happens. So he might be looking at tonight having a harder time walking versus immediately, depending where the severity of the ligament strain, sprain, tear could be. So, positives and negatives to that.
Absolutely. So let's go back. You talked about as far as negative, or you talked about mild, moderate, and severe injuries. Can you talk about timetables to return if it was something mild, moderate, or severe in this case?
Yeah. So if we're in the mild category, I'm going to say we'll have him back week 2 to 3 to be conservative in the regular season.
Okay.
If we're in the moderate category, he might be missing the first quarter to half of regular season. And if we're in a severe, I'm not sure we'll be seeing him back in the regular season.
That sounds reasonable. Because where it's severe, you're probably talking an ACL, MCL, PCL injuries. Those, of course, have major impacts on athletes. Even if he is able to recover, being a first-round pick, you'd want him to fully recover, of course, and take that. As a doctor of physical therapy, what are those paths look like? Let's say if he's in the mild to moderate and he could be back this season, what do those weeks look like when you're dealing with a patient trying to help them get back to full strength?
Being that he is obviously at this level of an athlete, right? He's going into any injury stronger than the normal person is, right? So his recovery period will be better. He's going to have access to the most top-notch medical care and rehabilitative care Pittsburgh has to offer, maybe outside of Pittsburgh if they want it, right? So I think compared to the layperson, his recovery will be better, but he is a professional athlete. They may be more conservative in bringing him back to play to avoid further injury, right? It just depends how his rehab team decides to nurse or manage the injury at hand.
Absolutely. So we will get more news from this. Again, we can't determine what's going on, but we always love to have Dr. K to come in and give us the potentials of what are all the things the Steelers need to be concerned about with Derek Harmon. As soon as we do know what will happen, we will report that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Dr. K, Dr. Karina Maharaja, thank you so much for returning back to the show. Any final thoughts you want to share with our audience about this situation?
I'm Chris Carter's #1 fan. That's it.
Well, I appreciate you, Karina. Thanks so much, Dr. K, for joining the show. Stay tuned to the Locked On Steelers podcast. We got a lot more to discuss here. So there you have it. There was my interview with Dr. K. Always thank you, Dr. K, for coming on and talking to us on the show. Bottom line is this could be a mild injury. Now, there's still a chance of a sprain being a moderate injury. I also texted Dr. K after we got the designation from Mike Tomlin that it was a sprain of some sort. She says it's definitely not a severe injury then. It's either mild or moderate. So this could be a thing where he's out till week 2 or week 3, or it could be a thing where he's out the first month of the season. But either way, you won't be missing Derek Harmon for the entire season. He's going to obviously take a rest. It seemed like, again, with him smiling and being able to talk on the sidelines and joke around, got some good news there. We'll still have to wait for the full report from the Steelers on what they saw there. I think the bottom line, though, is Steelers dodged a bullet, and I think it was really funny because going into this, I was also one person that was saying I wanted to see specifically the run game. I didn't need to see Jalen Ramsey and Joey Porter. I thought it would be cool to see it, but as far as preseason concerns, this is why the Steelers held out a lot of their guys, because imagine if that was TJ Watt that this was happening over. It was just the first round draft pick rookie and people were tripping. But imagine if that's Jalen Ramsey, who did play in this game, and we'll get to that in a little bit as well. But I thought that there was that this kind of showed like the balance of like, hey, you want to see things, especially with the young guys, you want to see them get some good reps in, get their experience, but you also want to play, you got to play that delicate balance of how much do you want to expose them to and a chance to get injured in a non-meaningful game. So it does look like the Steelers dodged the big bullet. Let's see how much of a hit that Derek Harmon takes in time to come back from. Maybe we'll get a report soon from the Steelers that'll allow him to be back sooner rather than later. We'll keep you up to date on all of that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.
August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Perhaps you believe the Green Bay Packers are going to win the Super Bowl, or maybe you have some division winner dark horses you'd like to parlay. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers.
Bralan Womack, the 5-star safety from the state of Mississippi, picks the Auburn Tigers. Auburn has some studs in this class, but he will probably end up being the highest rated player in Auburn's 2026 class, an elite defender, Daryl Dapprich.
First thing I'd like to say is for all you golf aficionados out there, right?
Yes.
Reading that putt, reading that green well. Listen.
That's right.
Anytime you get a 5-star, you celebrate
it's a hole in one, if you will.
It's a hole in one. Anytime you get a 5-star, that's huge. Auburn's got a couple of recruits now that have come on board here in the last couple of weeks that are big. Womack I've heard and seen in comparison to KJ Bolden comps.
Yeah.
As far as a freshman that played right away at Georgia, one that Auburn thought they had. Yep. He's special. He's a difference maker. And it really does tremendous. Look, Auburn needed a win, right? I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, some of this recruiting crap that we heard before SEC Media Days,
right?
And look at how they've climbed. And so, but just in itself, as a player, Womack is a difference maker and a guy that I think can play right away. And somebody texted me earlier and said, "That envision a secondary of Fagans, Winners, and Womack on your back end."
Caleb Harris.
And guess what? Caleb Harris is still yes.
I mean, hopefully Sylvester comes back. I mean, you just talk about like an absolutely loaded defensive back room.
Yep.
Womack, I mean, similar to these other guys that you mentioned, like they're also versatile because they're also talented and so gifted. They can play either safety spot or they could play nickel. We've kind of seen how DJ Durkin is super comfortable not assigning a specific role for all of these talented defensive backs. And maybe that's part of it. I mean, it seemed like Bralan liked Auburn from the get-go. It seemed like Ole Miss was in it early, and then something happened there, and then Ohio State entered the picture. And it's like, oh, all right, we'll see. And then it seemed like Auburn came on way harder than Ohio State. And then we heard kind of rumblings about a week ago where Ohio State tried to get back in it. And I mean, Auburn didn't really seem concerned. I think Auburn felt pretty confident in Bralan Womack for the last month or so.
Little insight here.
Yeah.
From somebody in the know. Remind me of the gentleman, the safety or the defensive back that went to Oregon last year that Freeze said.
Naeem offered.
Yes. That made a mark. That left an indelible mark. And I was told that was not going to happen with Womack. That another 5-star secondary player was not getting out of the Southeastern Conference, and that Auburn was going to. And I think Ohio State was potentially a big threat, but this is a kid that seemed like he wanted to play in the SEC and in this region. And so that obviously spoke volumes, and Auburn did what it had to do to make sure they got him in this class.
Yeah, it's huge. Bralan Womack, 5-star safety, 5-star defensive back. 247 has him as the top safety in the 2026 class. I mean, you talk about impact. I mean, that's a big deal to get the top player at any position, let alone one of a guy who can play multiple spots in your defensive backfield. The impact, it doesn't get much larger than Bralan Womack.
It doesn't. And again, even if Auburn was having the kind of year recruiting they had last year and they were a top 10 class, a player like this makes you top 5 if you had a top 10 class already. Just stand alone, this is big.
Yep.
This is the kind of – these are program-changing recruits.
Sure. There aren't many 5-stars, and you got one, which is big. It's a big deal. This is a lot off the field, too. Let's don't kid ourselves. Like, Bralan Womack is incredible, but this could – signify and represent something even larger. Bralan Womack is the latest addition, the 5-star safety out of the state of Mississippi to commit to the Auburn Tigers. I think this is much larger than just getting a 5-star. I mean, we had this conversation a little bit when Perry Thompson flipped and Auburn held on for, several guys like DeMarcus Riddick in that first class. And these guys like represent something. And Auburn's had some positive momentum since all of this stuff happened and blew up. All the golf stuff blew up a few months ago. And they've just kind of been steady since then with Wilson Zaire and Jaquez Wilkes and now, Bralan Womack. And I think I'm forgetting someone else, but like they've done an incredible job of getting, the top part of this class. And we keep hearing, the the saying that they're like, okay, this is going to be a smaller class. And if that's the case, getting these elite blue chip guys to headline the top of your class becomes even more important.
If you are going from 26, 27 kids to 16, you better make sure of two things. A, you address the needs of people that are going to be moving on. So if you know you're losing a particular position group, you need to fill that group up with this class, and it better be quantity. And again, till I'm blue in the face, I'll say it again for anybody that's new, which we love having new listeners and viewers. At the end of this cycle, I want to see what the average ranking per player is, average star ranking, especially if you get 16 or 17. That will speak volumes to me more than just sheer numbers.
Yeah, sure. And this is another situation where you've got a top target choosing Auburn over Ohio State, the defending national champs, which means something. Also, you get them out of Lane Kiffin's backyard. That's something. And the whole belief, everybody within the Auburn program believes that what's about to happen this year is Auburn trend in the right direction. You've got all these folks outside of it that are poking jokes and looking at Auburn's, like where Auburn's class is currently ranked and all of that. But once again, the people who are either committed or a part of this or already a part of the program, they believe. And I think that means something, Daryl.
It does. I think you talked about how big it is off the field. I mean, how big is it that, you talk about people poking. A head coach from Ole Miss is poking, and he's lost 2 kids in his own backyard to Auburn, in Matthews and now Womack.
Jace Matthews was the name I forgot just a second ago. Yes.
So, if you're doing a little less tweeting and a little more recruiting, maybe they don't go to Auburn. But look, I think the overall perception is August 1st was going to be a big, demarcation line. And I know it's not, you don't flip a switch, but at the end of the day, Auburn's gotten 2 big recruits in the month of August, 2 big recruits. And I think there's more to come. And I think what's going to happen is once the season starts, you'll see some flip candidates again.
Yeah, for sure. And as we get closer to signing day and if Auburn takes care of business, I think a lot of this will work itself out. Just win some football games. But
what's your final prediction of where you think Auburn's class ends up after signing day?
I'm going to say around 15. And the only reason it's not higher is I think the overall number will be too low to really get into the top 10.
It's exactly what I think. I was thinking anywhere between 14 and 17. And really the average star ranking will be top 10. I think.
Yeah, because I think that with Womack and then if they flip, Rankins is a big flip candidate a lot of people are talking about. And I think on 247's class calculator, I put those 2 guys in a week ago and it got Auburn 22. So that's close. That gets you in striking distance. If you can get another big name or 2 to flip or jump in the boat, you should be fine. That should put you around the mid-teens mark. I think that's pretty realistic. But you can say what you want. Auburn's done a pretty good job of holding on to people. They've done a pretty good job at it. So assuming you have the season that we all are hoping for and think that they should achieve, I think everything should be fine.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
The SEC will be adopting a 9-game football schedule moving forward.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks.
The big news coming in from the SEC is that we will have officially a 9-game SEC schedule in college football. Now, here I'm just going to put up the the official graphic here, so that way you all know what it looks like and what it's all about. Starting in 2026, it will continue with a single standings, non-divisional structure, so still no East and West, which is not really surprising. Each school, now this is where it gets interesting, each school will play 3 annual opponents focused on maintaining many traditional rivalries. Each team's remaining 6 games will rotate among the remaining conference schools. Each team will face every other SEC program at least once every 2 years, and every opponent home and away in 4 years. It just means more from the SEC. So here's the thing about this particular deal. It's not surprising. This isn't anything that's mind-blowing or it was just like, oh my gosh, we didn't expect this at all. It's something that has been needing to happen, in my opinion, and now it finally got developed. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they have so many deals with the college football playoff coming up, the possible expansion there. I think it has to do with money, as we all know. Maybe what coaches have wanted, maybe what athletic directors wanted. We know Hunter Yurchek's all in favor of it too. But this is something that seemed to be inevitable. It was just a matter of when, not if. So I like this. I like the fact that you're going to have 3 permanent opponents and then 6 rotating. I always hated it in the divisions, and I'm glad they got rid of divisions, mind you. I know some of you wish you could still have SEC West, SEC East. But for me, I was glad the divisions were done away with because there was just no way, shape, and form that you should have to wait 20 years to play on the road against an opponent in the East, just because of the setup for the schedule. There was just no reason for that. So I'm glad that they moved away from divisions and then adding this into the mix. It's going to make scheduling a lot easier, a lot more beneficial, a lot better. It's going to make it for, timing is going to be big. But if you're a Razorback fan, for instance, this is going to be about the schedule setting up for success for you. Because as we know, I've complained about it, you've complained about it, coaches complained about it. We have complained about the schedule that Arkansas seems to get each and every time and how ridiculous it is and how it seems over the top and how it's all dumb and it gets screwed, blah, blah, blah. This is going to set it up a little nicer for Arkansas. And it's never going to be perfect, but it's going to be at least a little bit more maneuverable for the Razorbacks. And it's really going to come down to this, because again, as it was mentioned, you'll play every opponent every 2 years and every opponent at their place home and away every 4 years, which is great. I love. But let's be honest, it's going to come down to, all right, so who are the 3 opponents? Who are the 3 opponents that every team is going to face? This is the ultimate challenge for the SEC. They mentioned they wanted to keep the rivals and the traditional rivals and everything like that. But there is no way, shape, and form you're going to make everybody happy. There's just no way. And for a team like Arkansas, I think that there can be a great game that everybody wants. There's going to be a team that you have to play that you don't want to play. And then there's just going to be a wild card in there, just to be honest. Because you also got to think about it when some of these teams who have big rivals, they could end up having a brutal 3 games every year. But hey, it's not your problem, right? It's only their problem. So we're talking about the Razorbacks specifically here. So let's talk about the Razorbacks. Let's get it out of the way. You're playing Missouri. It's going to happen. There's no way around it. Missouri is going to be one of your permanent opponents. I don't like it either. You don't like it, but we just got to start accepting it. It's the way it is. The SEC is not going to look at you and say, well, let's take Arkansas's teams into consideration of who they'd rather play. They're not going to do that. Missouri wants to play you, and you're just stuck. As I've always said, it's kind of like having when you were in school, having all the kids pair up, and then there's an odd number in the class, and you get stuck with the kid you don't want to be around that smells. I mean, that's just the way it is. So you're getting Missouri. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. Now, the other 2 teams, though, I actually, I know, let me backtrack a little bit. There's going to be one team that I think is going to be up in the air, but there's another team, this team, that I think is a guarantee. You're getting Texas, Razorback fans. You're going to play Texas every year in football. The times that I've had a chance to talk and sit down with Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, one of the things that has always been brought up was about the traditional rivalry and the history between Arkansas and Texas. It's always been brought up. This is something that is respected by Greg Sankey. And, say what you want about him or about the SEC or anything. That is one of the most appreciative things that I've had for Greg Sankey in the SEC than anything. Because you know how easy it would be for someone like Sankey or anyone in that position to look at Arkansas and look at Texas and then hear all the time about, well, Arkansas is like, well, we have this history with Texas. We want to play Texas because Texas doesn't care about playing you. But you say, hey, we want this, we want this, we want this. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And the commissioner in the SEC is going to be like, oh, yeah, that's cute, whatever. We'd rather have Texas play somebody else, somebody that we want, that we feel like will be better for them. Like, they could easily do that, and you'd just be out of luck. You wouldn't have anything to say. Just be like, well, the SEC doesn't really care about us. But that's not the case. The SEC does care about this game. They do care about the history, and that's why I am as confident that you are going to be playing Texas every year in football, and you're going to just have that home and home with them. It's just going to be historical. It's going to be traditional. It's not going to be like the end of the year, like final game, because that's reserved for Texas and Texas A&M, but it's going to be respected. And I think that that's big. So I would bet my house on the fact that you're going to get Texas and Missouri every single year. Now, the third team that you would end up playing and having as a permanent opponent each and every year, that one's the one that can be up for, honestly, I could see this going a few different directions. But I believe it's going to be between LSU, Ole Miss, stay with me on this, Oklahoma. Okay? Oklahoma. Here's why. The LSU one is obvious. It's the Golden Boot. It's a rivalry, if you want to call it that, but it's something that's been around for a bit. Arkansas and LSU play each other a lot. They're connecting in states. Like, they just, it would be something that's there. The only reservation I would have from that is that LSU is a hot commodity team that I'm sure a lot of people want to play. Like LSU and Bama, they're going to want them to play every year. LSU and Ole Miss, they're going to want them to play every year. LSU and Florida has, ironically enough, developed a rivalry. They want them to play every year. What about LSU and Oklahoma? Was there some history? LSU and A&M, what about that? So the point is that LSU is going to have a lot of options. There are going to be a lot of teams and a lot of people who want them to fit in. So I just think it could happen, but I'm not feeling as confident. And then you have the Ole Miss Rebels, which Ole Miss to me is a very likely, and the one personally that I would prefer the most if it was going to be that third team. Because Arkansas and Ole Miss, you talk about history and random craziness. We don't know about all those games. We know about the 7 overtime game, about the Hunter Henry Heave game, the all the different madness and chaos that has been caused between these two opponents anytime they get on the field. It's that way, and it's been established. And I think that there's a lot of cultural similarities. I think that there are a lot of fans, like, for instance, some with the Little Rock game no longer going to be around. Playing in Oxford is not that far. Was it 3 hours away from Little Rock? And so there's going to be some people that may make that trip, and Fayetteville and Arkansas could be kind of, having a pretty good showing, a pretty good presence there. But to me, I think that one would be the one I would enjoy, the one that would make the most sense, but the one that I would enjoy the most. And then finally, the Oklahoma angle, because some of you are probably saying, well, John, what about Texas A&M? And sure, I guess so, but I don't think that, again, me personally, I don't think that the SEC is going to say, well, Arkansas, you just get to play both Texas teams. I think they're going to try to spread that out a little bit. Wouldn't be against it if they decided to choose Texas A&M, but I think that would be a little bit on the nose. The reason I bring up Oklahoma is because of this particular reason. I would love it if it was Oklahoma. I think Ole Miss would be my number one, but I would love it if it was Oklahoma strictly because of proximity. It would be so nice to have an SEC game every year that both schools on their campuses, not just in the state, but on their campuses, is a day trip away. Like, if Arkansas played Oklahoma at 2:30 in the afternoon, folks, you could, if you lived up in your Northwest Arkansas, I know it's difficult from other places, but if you lived in Northwest Arkansas, you could wake up at a decent hour, drive over there, go tailgate a little bit, watch the game, get done with the game, come back and be home at a decent hour. That is a very rare thing, especially for Arkansas. Arkansas does not have that luxury with any team. I think it's 5.5, 6 hours to Columbia, Missouri. I think it's, to Oxford from here is about 6 hours to there. It's College Station's really far away. Austin's really far away. So when it comes to having just a a short, nice little trip. Arkansas and Oklahoma would be ideal. And honestly, with the other side looking at it from Oklahoma, Oklahoma and Texas are going to play each other every year for sure. But besides that, does Oklahoma have any other rivalries? Like, do they want them to play Missouri every year? Maybe. Texas A&M? Maybe. But besides Texas, it's kind of open. So I feel like that would be an opportunity, in my opinion, and one that would make sense proximity-wise for Arkansas to play Oklahoma every year. So if I was to have my druthers, if it was up to me, let me take that back. I think the most likely scenario is going to end up being Arkansas playing Missouri, Texas, and Ole Miss. I think that's the most likely. The Ole Miss game, I would listen to the Oklahoma deal. I would listen to the LSU deal. I'd listen to the A&M deal. But to me, it's Texas and Missouri for sure, and the third game's up to debate.
August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Perhaps you believe the Green Bay Packers are going to win the Super Bowl, or maybe you have some division winner dark horses you'd like to parlay. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
And joining me now, Camille Davis, who does a great job covering the Milwaukee Bucks for us over at, you guessed it, Locked On Bucks. And it's been, I think, a very interesting summer in Milwaukee, Camille, because there have been no shortage of rumors as far as Giannis Antetokounmpo and whether or not he's going to stay, whether or not he's going to go. Of course, he still is a member of the Milwaukee Bucks, despite all that speculation. And Milwaukee made one of the most interesting moves, or I guess combination of moves this summer, waving and stretching Damian Lillard and then signing Miles Turner into cap space, which absolutely nobody saw coming. So I say all that to say this: what's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks this summer?
That summary summed it up pretty well right there. I think to quickly say it before going in depth of it, it's the first step in a new direction with Giannis. We are so used to how these teams are constructed with Giannis, and we're so used to him having that main co-star for years, even before the Dame trade. You had Chris Middleton, who was a steady number 2. Now, there were arguments of should it be a 2 or a 3? You get Drew Holiday, and then you can argue 2A, 2B, whatever it is in that situation. You still have Chris, you go and get Dame. That doesn't work out. And now you're in a situation for the Bucks where there's no true co-star, where you can look at one player and say, that's the other guy. And now it's a collection of guys, with the Bucks moving into really embracing that point Giannis that we saw at flashes throughout last season when Dame was out with the blood clots, and as well as when Jason Kidd was coach and put that ball in the Giannis's hands. And now Doc and the Bucks are going forward next season with that being the game plan of, hey, Giannis, you are running the offense. So while some of the names that are back are familiar to who we saw last year, the role in which they play this upcoming year, I think, is going to be pretty different.
So you mentioned point Giannis, and that's where I want to go with this next, because I do think that's a fascinating way for this team to look. Obviously, they did that, as you mentioned, when Jason Kidd was coach back in like 2017, 2018, before he was fired. Obviously, with Dame missing time because of the blood clot last year, it was done out of necessity. But what are both the good and the bad things that you think are part of the point Giannis experience with the Bucks?
I think a great thing with it is that, one, he's happy playing that way. And you mentioned when we opened just all of the talk around Giannis being Milwaukee. And I think him finding that happiness on the court, in addition to being in a situation where he thinks he can win, is really important. You put the ball in his hand. And I think one of the big benefits is that is, one, I don't think a lot of teams are going to press Giannis pushing the ball up, which was one of the reasons Doc was kind of like, we could actually go with this, because it's really hard to pressure Giannis in the backcourt, get the ball over the half court line, and initiate that offense. And also, I think it sets up the other teammates really well when you don't have that true number 2. Putting the ball in Giannis's hands, letting his gravity dictate where the ball goes. He's a really good passer. So if he can draw coverages, see a teammate open, and get the ball to him, like, there's going to have to knock down some open shots and make sure they're moving the ball and playing defense. So I think him being the engine of the team makes a lot of sense, especially when there's no true co-star on the team next to him. Now, the thing that gives me some pause is just that Giannis only plays at one speed unless he's tired. When he gets tired, you can tell. And that's my concern with the usage going up even more for him. When he does get in those moments where he's tired, how slow does the offense now move? Because now he's walking the ball up. Are we not initiating offense until, there's 15 seconds on the clock, 16 seconds? Like, you don't want to get in those situations. You want to be able to play kind of loose and free, and the randomness of it to a certain degree, with Giannis being the conductor of all of that chaos.
So what does the Bucks plan offensively look like when Giannis is not on the floor? Because I think in today's day and age, like, it's probably foolish to expect him or anybody else to play 82 games. And we know he's not playing 48 minutes a night. And you just mentioned, the offense maybe not looking as great when he gets tired, but who do you think that they can rely upon to kind of get that show running when he is on the bench, or maybe when he's not active on a random Tuesday night in January, as they try and preserve his legs for what I imagine Milwaukee hopes to be a run into the postseason?
Yeah, I think it's going to fall out on Kevin Porter Jr., to be honest with you. And the reason why I think the Bucks were so adamant about trying to bring him back, it's a lot of opportunity for him here, especially with Dame out. And the play we saw with him on the Bucks was far different than the play we saw from him earlier in the season when he was a Clipper. So the Bucks are banking on continuing that development. We've seen it in flashes before, even when he was in Houston, that KPJ can really light it up. He can initiate the offense, more of a score first, combo guard type of player. But Doc Rivers has really been talking about putting that emphasis in building up his point guard skills, learning that drive and kick, not dribbling just to dribble, but with a purpose, trying to find your teammates. And I think a lot of it's going to fall on his shoulders to initiate offense when Giannis is off the floor, in those games when Giannis is sitting. Because the Bucks have a lot of combo guards. Really, no one I would point to and say a real true point guard, because you have Cole Anthony coming off the bench as well. Ryan Rollins is in that mix. You have Gary Trent Jr., who's that combo guard as well. AJ Green, more of a 2-3, but like just a lot of guys that are more so combo, need help getting their own shots. And the shot creators on the Bucks are really Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., and then Bobby Portis off the bench, in addition to Cole Anthony, who is more like that bench guy for them.
Do you think that is enough shot creation behind Giannis?
If Giannis only if Giannis remains healthy the whole way through. Like if anything happens to Giannis, all of this kind of goes out the window. In those games when he does sit, or if injury happens, knock on wood that they don't, and nothing major happens to him, but you're going to have a hodgepodge of guys really trying to figure it out. And I think in those games, what you'll see is just a higher volume of threes going up. And then the defense has to ratchet up a notch for this Bucks team to take a step. And honestly, that's the side of the ball for the Bucks, where I think if they are going to be a team that has home court come playoff time, top 4 in the East, the defense is going to have to at the very least be top 10. If they want to really be something, it has to be a top 5 defense, I think.
I think that's a fair way to look at things, especially when a little bit of scoring pop leaves in Damian Lillard. And I do want to kind of transition to that, because I think it's fair to say that was the most shocking move in the NBA this summer. Like, Kevin Durant got traded, but everybody expected Kevin Durant to get traded. I don't think anyone's bingo card had Damian Lillard is going to get waived and stretched, despite the fact that he did tear his Achilles in the postseason and obviously would not have been available to play in all likelihood for the entirety of this upcoming season. But I want to go back to that day in July. What went through your mind the moment you got the update that, they're cutting Dame?
What? That was the initial. I said what so many times in like a 5-minute.
I remember I watched the show that you and Justin Garcia, your co-host on Locked On Bucks, I watched the show you guys did that day, and it's just like, because I was in disbelief. I cannot imagine that they feel any differently. This just has to be stunning.
It was, because you see the Miles Turner news come first, and it was like well, how did they do this? Is it a sign and trade? That this happened, this and this and this? And like 2 minutes later, you see Damian Lillard waived and stretch, and it was like, what? And then it's like doing the math of like, okay, how much dead cap is about to be on the books for how long now? So you got $22.5 million on the books for the next 5 years. And it's like, it was just so many emotions. Like, I felt bad for Dame initially too, of just like, man, when you get waived and stretched at this point in your career, especially with an Achilles injury, that can be tough. Sad about how it just didn't work out in Milwaukee. Like the first year, the adjustment, this year, it just injuries along the way for both of them. It felt disappointing. Like there was a lot of meat left on the bone for that duo, but also like It just didn't work. And the Bucks said, we don't have much more time to dabble to see if this works. So they had to do something. And the further we get away from the Dame, Wave, and Stretch, and then also him going back to Portland, which feels like poetic in itself, it feels like the Bucks made the right move that they had to make at this time, understanding the window with Giannis, understanding the East and the landscape of the conference this year, where it feels really, really open. So why not do something where we might catch lightning in a bottle and be able to strike?
So how do you think the fit between Giannis and Miles Turner will be on the floor when we get to that point and the season gets here in like 8 weeks?
It's crazy to think that it's only like 2 months away
I know.
from the season starting. I can't wait. But
I mean, 2 months from today, depending on when this comes out, there will be regular season basketball games. That's crazy.
Yeah. Because I know it will be. I can't wait. Miles Turner, great fit. A great fit. And I know some people were thinking like it might be a little too much money for Miles Turner, but there's a specific type of big that works next to Giannis, and Brook Lopez was that blueprint of what it looks like. Giannis himself has admitted does not like playing the 5 for long stretches. It's not what he enjoys to do. You put Miles Turner next to him, a guy who can stretch the floor, similar to Brook Lopez. It's like he gives you most of the things that Brook Lopez gave you, by being 7 years younger. On top of that, a bit more agile on the perimeter if he gets drawn out there. Still not somebody you want to like throw out on the perimeter, like go switch everything, Miles, and go crazy. Like you still got to protect him a little bit, but he's much more agile than Brook Lopez. He's a better mid-range shooter than Brook Lopez is at this point as well. But the one area for Miles Turner where I have concern, if you want to call it concern or just keeping my eye on it through the season, 2 things in particular. One, Brook Lopez was an Iron Man. Outside of the year after they won the championship where he had the back surgery and he missed most of the season, you can count on Brook Lopez for 80 games a year, and he's going to play them like very consistent. And 2, the rebounding, which I know people look at Brook Lopez's raw rebounding numbers, and it's always like, this dude is trash. He's 7 feet tall and he gets like 4 rebounds a game. What are we doing? But the team always rebounded better when he was on the floor because he boxed out, let his teammates grab those boards and go from there. So for Miles Turner, just the rebounds and then just how much he plays this season as well, I think is a big one. But on court fit next to Giannis, they're about the same age. He spaces the floor. He plays defense. It's what you want.